Hello, welcome back to the channel. Mr. H here and his apparently really squeaky chair. Really sorry about that. We're talking Hellraisers today. I've got a pretty large update for you all. It's kind of bittersweet though. This will just be me talking through, giving a bit of a recap with respect to the movie Reboot that you may or may not have known about. And then telling you a little bit of a story with respect to the Clive Barker lawsuit that's potentially happening, maybe, again, a little bit more information on that, and how all of this has developed into one, because I do have some information about this particular thing, the actual movie Reboot, what they're planning to do, what sort of direction they're planning to go in, whether we would even see a Pinhead-styled Cenobite. Yes, I do know all of this bits of information, but then again, some bittersweet because there is an update with respect to the Clive Barker lawsuit. So, if you want to stay up to date on Hellraiser news, the news of pop culture and movies and things like that, and also some movie reviews, make sure you do hit subscribe. That would, mucho gracias. And then, I know I've said that wrong. And then also, please do give the video a like. Anyway, let's dive into it. Right, so if you didn't know, there is a Hellraiser movie reboot happening, right? This is a movie reboot. It's by Spyglass Media Group or Spyglass Entertainment. This was announced also along with a Hellraiser TV series. Now, they are not combined. They are not one and the same. They are completely different. The Hellraiser TV series, again, for those that don't know, just a brief recap, is being written by Mark Verheiden as well as Michael Dougherty, and it's being directed, or at least the pilot, and potentially showrun by David Gordon Green, the chap behind the Halloween reboot. It was also being produced by Dan Farah of Farah Films, as well as some other bits and people, some producers that they've kind of worked with. Roy Lee, they worked together on Ready Player One and things like that. So quite big time producers, not small. Roy Lee specifically handles in a lot of horror. Did It Chapter 1 and 2. So, they know their horror. But that's the TV series, right? That, as far as we're aware, is moving ahead with HBO. Not HBO Max, again, as far as I could see. But then I can't see why it wouldn't end up on HBO Max if they're looking to sort of, navigate everyone over to that paid subscription service. So that's happening, as far as I could tell. And as far as I could tell, the Clive Barker lawsuit is not affecting that. Now, when that was all announced, we'd also had this, right? This is Spyglass Media Group's Hellraiser Reboot. And it had slowly developed. Slowly developed. And nothing particularly amazing about it. The director was going to be a chap called David Bruckner, which we found out in this article on The Hollywood Reporter, right? And it looked pretty good. Now, this was good news when we'd heard it, because we'd had previously heard that David Goyer was going to be doing it, or at least handling it, producing it, and it was going to be his story, which didn't make any sense. One, David Goyer, not good. He works good with other people, but not good by himself. And when we heard that it was going to be his story, that's really bad news. It's very concerning, because he's crap. And I'm happy to say it, I don't care. He's not very good. He's good when he's paired with other people to direct it. He's good dropping some ideas in and then someone else's sort of directs the story away. We'd heard that it was his story, but it was going to be a reboot of the original movie. Now, that sort of made some sense in some regard, but then it didn't make sense further down the line when we had this news. Now, this news was that David Bruckner would direct, and then the screenplay would be by Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski. Now, that didn't make any sense, because if you've got David Goyer coming on board to do the story, but the story is just a reboot, why would you then have it develop that much further past in terms of it being a screenplay? I know that there's some sort of, refining and things like that, but it looked like Goyer was taking much more of a back seat, and it was actually just being handled by Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski. Now, I will say that that sort of overview, that him taking a step back and it being more fleshed out and less of a reboot story, because again, as this article said here, David Goyer, one of the producers of Night House, is writing the story. Why would you need to? You know, if it's just a reboot, and then why would you then need the screenplay to be done by other people? You see what I mean? It starts to muddy the waters. Well, I think what the news I'm about to tell you anyway does sort of add on to that. So they have started meeting with people. News on the grapevine has started to come down that they have started to meet with people to do very, very basic things. And I mean really, really basic stuff. They're starting to flesh out the screenplay. And as a result of that, they've started to flesh out a little bit more of the art direction that they want to go in. Now, again, this is bittersweet news, so stay till the end because we're going to get to this. But what I've heard is actually really, really good, right? It's actually great stuff. Obviously, a large portion of the fan base will be like, right, well, no Doug Bradley, no Pinhead. They weren't actually going to go down that route. Their plans, as at present, is to go quite away from, you know, they were going to embrace the Cenobites, and in terms of what they are, the aesthetic and things like this. Their plan is to go absolutely balls to the wall, incredibly grotesque, incredibly sort of fetishized, latex clad, leather clad, really BDSM, right? Really hone in on that. It was going to be, or is going to be, absolutely grotesque, very much in that vein. The idea was that it's still going to be that singular house. Picture, you know, Hellraiser, bare bones, right? Very much bare bones, house, family, villains. Cenobites come up for about 2 minutes, right? Because that's what Hellraiser is. That is what they were going to go down. Very, very dark, very, very gritty, very much something which is kind of unmarketable, really. But it is Hellraiser at the end of the day. That's what they wanted to go down. They really, really are focused in on that. That is what they wanted to do. However, and this is where we get to the bittersweet element. So there is movement on it, right? There is movement on it. They've started to meet with people. They have started to flesh out the screenplay. They have the bare bones concept of what they want to do. I know this, anonymous sources. However, they have started to stall on all of this. Why? Because Clive Barker is now getting more and more involved with his lawsuit. If this page will bloody load. So here we go. We've got the Hellraiser Clive Barker rights, basically. Now, this was always going to be throwing a spanner in the works. Inevitably, it was bound to happen. Clive Barker got in the way of the ultimate cut of Nightbreed coming out. I did a video on that, and lots of people have come up and asked, you know, what's happening with it. He knocked it to one side. He got his way. And it's not that he got his way and, you know, it's being made. He got his way and it's not being made, which is a real shame. Especially because a lot of that stuff was stuff which he shot, and, you know, you'd think that he'd want it out there. But because he's not getting money for it, despite the rights being owned by other people for those things, he has got in the way and it's now been stopped. Now, again, I'm not going to say this is good or bad, but I do think this is bad news in terms of us getting the Hellraiser movie reboot. Sadly, here, he's got in the way. All of those meetings that have been happening, the screenplay, is kind of ground to a bit of a halt, you know, as a steam train sort of grinds to a halt. That's kind of what has happened here. Now, if you didn't know, Clive Barker has basically filed a suit, right? For those of you who like Friday the 13th lawsuit, now real Clive Barker has sued for a declaratory judgment that he can terminate his 1986 transfer and get his rights to the Hellraiser franchise back. Basically, he wants to own Hellraiser again. Whether he does a James Cameron and he just sells it straight back, who knows? That's probably what would happen because it's all for money. But this is a massive shame, okay? This is a huge shame. And I'm really surprised that Bloody Disgusting kind of framed this particular news as really, really positive, because it's not really positive. You know, they've said, yes, you read that right, Clive Barker, who created the Hellraiser franchise, as well as several Cenobites, including Pinhead, has sent notice of termination to producers and plans to grab back his rights to the Hellbound Heart. You know, again, they've kind of said, you know, Barker would get his rights in the underlying story he wrote, and also the rights in his first script. He would not get any rights in things that were in any of the sequels that were added. You know, and a lot of people have said that this is very positive, this sounds really, really good. And it does and it doesn't. You know, there's 2 projects currently underway. This really does set to undermine and stifle that creativity, especially because of what I now heard, that they are going absolutely balls to the wall. David Bruckner did Ritual. Ritual's a great film, and was, you know, toned down in elements here and there. But them doing a Hellraiser, really balls to the wall, I think it sounds great, and I think this is a massive shame. So there you go. Big update, and it is a big update, but it's a bittersweet one. There is movement happening, but it seems to have stalled. If they do get their own way and it starts up again, mark my words, it is going to be balls to the wall. It's going to be really, really hard R, gross, grotesque. Cenobites are not going to be what we know. They're going to be really, really fucked up. So there you go. Love to hear your thoughts, so please do let me know down below in the comment section. If you're new here, like I said at the start, hit subscribe, step to date on the world of pop culture movie news by hitting the bell notification icon. If you want to support the channel further, I've got Patreon linked down below, and we also have a Teespring store underneath every video. Thank you all so much though. I've been Mr. H. Take care.